a man never steps in the same river twice, right? Because the water is different. When you're rereading a book that you read 10 years ago, you're not the same person. What is up? How you guys doing today? I've got something on my heart that I have to share with all of you guys. It's a simple concept, a powerful concept, one that right now I'm living in my life that I thought I could serve, but it was inspired by a conversation with a friend, which is reminded, not taught. What does this mean? It happens often when I'm working with a coaching client, and when I look at some of the things they've done in the past and they've had success, and I usually ask them. So I remember one time I was having a conversation with one of my clients, Joe, and he had grown his business by I think it was double every month for 3 months in a row. And then it peaked and it came down. And I remember asking Joe, I was like, hey, Joe, because this was 6 months after the fact, this peak. And he came to me because he was having trouble. I said, what did you do those few months prior to the decline? What changed? And he goes, well, I used to run a bunch of partner webinars. And do you still run them? And he goes, no. And I said, why'd you stop? He goes, I don't know. I just got distracted. I was working on Facebook ads. I was doing some other stuff. And it reminds me of the concept that for a lot of people, we don't need to be taught new things. We need to be reminded of fundamentals of things we've done in the past. That was the conversation I had today with one of my friends is, I think a lot of people get into this habit of wanting to learn, wanting to study, wanting to better themselves. It feels good. Every day is a new opportunity to kind of add another, quiver to your arsenal of different tools to solve problems, a different book, a different quote, a different podcast interview. And what happens is you just learn a bunch of stuff, but you're actually not taking action. Okay. I call this shelf help. A lot of people run into this almost rat wheel of, or hamster wheel of doing, but not actually executing the things we know how to do, these fundamentals, right? So I want to share a few ideas. Number one is to know and not to do is not to know, right? Somebody said that, I can't remember the quote specifically, but to know and not to do is not to know. When people say I know better, I knew better. Yeah, I've heard that before, but then why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you doing it right now? Interesting. It's fascinating, right? I was listening to a podcast a month ago from Tim Ferriss, and he made a commitment, I think it was last year, because he gets a bunch of books from friends of his that have written different new books. And he said, I took a year off and I said, I'm not going to read anything new. That really inspired me for this year. I decided this year, I'm not going to read any new books. I'm only going to read old books. And what's cool is that when you study the fundamentals, books like Think and Grow Rich, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, etc., you realize that a lot of these principles, these fundamentals, they're not new. They've been around forever. It's almost like wisdom is old. And what we're reading today, if it's a new book, is just kind of a remix. And there's this great video I found once on Vimeo of the idea of a remix, that a lot of current ideas are not new. They're remix of old ideas, right? So to know and not to do is not to know. And learning from history is such a powerful thing because a lot of the wisdom is super old. It's based in fundamental truths about, purpose and principle and character of humans, right? The other thing I want to share with you is that success leaves clues. If you study anybody that's successful, often what you'll find people that are what I call almost like idiot savants. They are competent. They're unconsciously competent. A lot of folks that are successful that don't take the time to kind of review and audit their activities and their thoughts and their beliefs, a lot of them just do, and they're very successful. But what I've discovered is there's a huge opportunity to actually audit their behaviors to figure out what were the activities, what were their beliefs, their mindsets, their actions, their habits that caused them to succeed. What makes Elon Musk Elon? What makes Bezos Bezos? What makes Buffett Buffett, right? these icons of the business community. And what's funny is that a lot of folks, I feel they kind of know, but they don't accept what they discover. Meaning that, okay, well, I see Buffett decide to do something for 70 years. I see Elon make a commitment to a higher purpose. I see Bezos focus on the flywheel. If you ever read the book, The Flywheel Effect, you'll see kind of Amazon's flywheel. And again, reminded, not taught. I'm sharing a lot of these concepts, but they're not new. Maybe you've heard them before, but you've let them go. These disciplines, these rituals, these habits that you used to have that were the reason for your success, they moved on. You know, one of my friends, Brad, talks about civilization as just such a great inspiration for fundamental human truths, right? Like, how crazy is it that you can study different civilizations that didn't know each other, and when you look at their rituals in regards to how, kids become of age and kind of this transition from child to man or woman, and like they all have these rituals they've created, things like song, things like just culture, and just like these best practices. What does it mean to be a good person? And even though these different civilizations have never contacted each other, different parts of the world, you can see these principles, right? So for me, I love to find these fundamental truths, right? These best practices for success. And a lot of times it's not by studying new stuff, but it's revisiting, reminding myself of old stuff that I've let go, I forgot. I mean, when I was telling people that this year I was only reading old books I had read, kind of the top books. And if you guys want a copy or the top, I don't know if there's 60 books, but I made a list of all my top books. You can click the link below and download a copy for yourself, or the list of all the books, my top books. Those are the books essentially I'm rereading this year. And there's a quote that somebody shared with me, and they said that a man never steps in the same river twice, right? Because the water is different. When you're rereading a book that you read 10 years ago, you're not the same person. You're fundamentally a different person today than you were then. And I'll tell you, it's crazy to read a book like 7 Habits. I remember I was in Ohio running on a trail, listening to the audiobook of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey, incredible book. And I remember not a lot of stories, but I remember the way it made me feel. And I remember the aha moments. And then I read that exact same book, verbatim, same book on my Kindle. And I swear it's like I didn't even read the book. There was this one page on sharpening the saw that I remember. The rest of it, man, it was almost like I was reading another book. Why? I read that book when I was 23, right? Like that was a long time ago. And that fundamentally shifted the way I approach my life. And even reading it today, the principle of, the golden egg versus the goose that lays the golden egg. If you haven't read the book, it's highly recommended. But to me, being reminded, not taught is such a core principle and belief in the mindset that I have that I think could really serve you. Because the last thing I want to share with you is the idea that often we need to model, not modify the things that we're learning. Okay. I coach a lot of incredible founders. I teach about 400 different growth playbooks. These are blueprints for growth around different things. Like the big pillars are track, convert, expand, scale. It's called ACEs. Okay. These are the pillars. Each pillar has accelerators that I focus on, like building authority or creating a vision or whatever. But essentially they're accelerators to grow the business. And within those, I have playbooks that you can, like, how do you do a one-page strategic plan? And I give people the templates. I give them the scripts. I give them the exact prescription they need to execute to get that outcome. And even in that case, where I give them the email template in some cases, in certain frameworks, they still decide to freestyle. They still decide to modify. They still decide to add their creative twist, which I get, because a lot of people think like, I'm different. Maybe this doesn't work for my industry. Maybe that doesn't work for the certain way that I'm building my business. And what I've discovered is more often than not, when we modify before we model, we don't get the results. And if we modify too much, then we don't think the thing works. So we think we're modeling, but we're really executing some creative new twist on it. It doesn't work. You don't understand the nuance. So my prescription, in this whole essence of being reminded, not taught, is even when you're learning new stuff, model it verbatim. Take it, copy and paste it, R&D it, rob and duplicate is what I call it, just so that you can get some feedback, get some success, get some early traction, understand why each component of that system, in my case, the growth playbook, works. And then from there, you can go, oh, if I change this, I think it might work better for my audience or my customer. That is the essence of model then modify. So to know and not to know is not to know. Success leaves clues. I mean, at the end of the day, successful people are leaving clues all over. You just have to study them and really understand that they're not teaching you anything new. They're just reminding you, hopefully, of things that are in your core, that are principles that are part of civilization, that are just best practices around discipline and execution. And that if you are modeling something, model it before you modify it. Take it verbatim, execute on it, get some wins, get some traction, get some results, and then you can play with it again. If you want a copy of my top business books and really personal development books, click the link below to get your copy. And I would love to hear from everybody. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you heard today that you needed to hear most. Is it the concept around shelf help? Have you been stuck into this nonstop consumption of personal development, but you've missed the law of Goya, as my friend John Assaraf says, the get off your ass execution of the learning of this stuff, right? Is it some other aspect where you were doing something and you stopped? What did you need to be reminded of today, not taught? I want to hear from everybody below in the comments. With that, I hope this video finds you incredibly well. We'll talk soon. Peace. Later, everybody.